Join us on this week's United Rugby Rewind, where we review all of the URC Week 3. The win, the rain, the joy, the pain, it is all in there. Then we look forward to round 4, the derbies and the maybes. Let's get on with it, shall we? Hello and welcome to this week's United Rugby Rewind with me, Lee G, and the ABC of rugby. Alan, Ben, and Caolan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Hi, guys.
So I used the ABC thing for commentary after the game. So normally I do a 3-word feedback. Give us your 3-word thoughts on the game. So I thought we'd tweak that and we go, give me your feedback. Only make it ABC. Give me your ABC feedback. Well, a few people got confused and just gave me 3 words, and then a couple of people abused the C word.
What a coincidence!
Yeah, they were not very complimentary.
They called them Cardiff instead of the Blues. I think that's the issue.
So I don't think I'm going to run with the ABC in future. I think I'll just stick to 3-word feedback and hope that particular C word doesn't come up very often again. So let's crack straight into week 3. Fantastic week again, but let's crack on with Lions Edinburgh. So it's our first interpod game. So Alan, you're a Lions fan. Ben, for now, you're an Edinburgh fan. So Alan, Lions are at home. What did you make of Lions Edinburgh last week, mate?
Obviously, I was impressed. I think the Lions did excellent. A little bit disappointed in Edinburgh's performance. It kind of went as I expected. I had them on Super Route, I think, to win by 15 points. And I mean, they did much better than that. I did mention to the guys and all of you in the chat that I thought, it's a little bit of those situations where a house of cards just kind of like collapses in on itself. I questioned the TMO at times. I think there was a few decisions which you could have come in. I think, early doors, I think 2 of the Lions tries shouldn't have been allowed. And I think that with a little bit more luck, Edinburgh could have scored 2 tries right at the beginning as well. But as we got towards half time, the Lions obviously just ran away with it. And it was going to be very, very difficult for Edinburgh to even muster a bonus point from that point on. So really happy with the performance, a little bit disappointed in Edinburgh. I'm glad to see they came back in the second half. That seems to be a bit of a trend with Edinburgh. They do better. I think did they get a bonus point, 4-try bonus point the week before against the Bulls? No,
it's just a less than 7 difference.
Yeah.
As well.
So I mean, it's still a bit of a comeback. So they did quite well to get a bonus point there, and I was hoping they would get a 4-try bonus point because as nice as it is to win a game like that, you want these games to be competitive, don't you? So it was nice to watch, and I really enjoyed it. But now they've got to come over here to the UK. And hopefully they can maintain some of that momentum. But really happy with the performance from the players. Really happy with the coaching staff at the moment. They've got a game plan. They've got a definite direction that they're going in, as I thought before we started the season. And I do believe that at the moment, they're probably the best performing South African team. So let's hope they can take some of that momentum over to the UK, because I know within the next 5 games or so, it's going to get a little bit tougher for them. But I'm really, really happy where we are at the moment. Good.
Okay. So Alan is disappointed in Edinburgh, Ben. I can tell by your face already, mate, that disappointed isn't
That's the main thing.
I'm very disappointed. I think is the most polite and diplomatic way I can put it. I was watching the game yesterday, and every 5 minutes that went by, another few points were added to the scoreboard in that first half, and biggest halftime deficit in the existence of even Pro 12, Pro 14, and URC. I don't think there's been a game that's had a 48-zip scoreline at half time, and I think the only reason we got some tries in the second half is because the Lions took their foot off the gas for the last 30 minutes. They only, McSwaney scored his hat trick, I think probably 75th, 76th minute. We had no line breaks in the entire match, nothing. Lions had 18, and all 18 were probably in the first 30 minutes. That's how bad it was from a defensive and an attacking perspective. It looked like the players down tools after the first 25 minutes. People you wouldn't expect to be down in tools. Darcy Graham, he's one of my favourite players, but he was non-existent yesterday. He was brought, he was sucked in 2 occasions. One, I think it was Max Wani's second try, sucked in, turned around, didn't even casual jog back, didn't he? Just stood there and let Wes Houston got done on his outside, and Max Wani went and scored. A couple of kicks through from the Lions 9 or 10, I think. Like Alan, you'll know his name off the top of my head. I can't think. I think it's he came off. He came off after 35 minutes.
Vol Hunter. But I just want to mention as well that he went off because of a shoulder charge as well. So
which should have been picked up. Was there a TMO yesterday? I got very confused.
There was I think there was, but I didn't hear. And in fact, the game afterwards, there was not. He wasn't coming in for much. I was perfectly happy with a couple of the calls at the time, but it was once you guys are quite astute at pointing out, the first try was definitely the second try as well. I think there was a couple of forward passes. I don't even think there was one forward pass. And it's just a little bit like, you don't want these games to start off like that. And then the fly half went off injured, Vol Hunter. And they bought, I forgot his name now, the scrum half on, our danger man. But then it's like, you want them to be calling these players, and players that fly off's injured. But TMO didn't seem very involved in the game at all,
Well, there was one, and I don't want to be sort of, picking out refereeing, officiating infringements, because we were well beaten and deserved to lose. But there was the first try, I think, when he picked it up from inside the hind leg, and that's technically offside, isn't it? You can't do that because you're not obviously off the base of the ruck. And I think that was one where ordinarily a TMO would probably pick that up. And I think there has been this fluctuation in the standards that you see the game Glasgow against Benetton, where they're picking up a forward pass from 6 or 7 phases before the Benetton try. And I think we just want consistency. So it would have, the fact that we didn't hear the TMO at all, because obviously over the commentary you tend to hear them speaking through the ref's ear, because obviously it's loud enough for it to be transmitted, unlike football where it's obviously a closed sort of conversation loop. But yeah, I was a bit sad. But beyond that, I mean, yeah, it was one of those games yesterday where everything went wrong that could go wrong. There was the midfield yesterday. I know Duhan van der Merwe was injured very late on before the match, but it wasn't a winger's sort of kind of fault that Edinburgh was so bad yesterday. It was just defensively porous. It seemed that every shoulder was soft and fell away like butter in a pan. It was as bad as that yesterday. And we did get 3 tries yesterday. I think it would have been it would have flattered us if we'd scored 4 tries yesterday. And I think it would have given Sean Everitt maybe a little bit of unnecessary kind of positivity to take out of the game, because it seems that he doesn't really seem to know what to do at the moment. And it was my concern when we had this conversation about Scatalia, the group, that I thought if we lose our first 3 games, which we have now done, I'm not sure where we go from here, because we've got the Stormers next Saturday. Edinburgh will be, the Hive Stadium will be full, but it's the Stormers, and they won very, very comfortably yesterday. And my concern is that if we don't win our first 4, what then happens to the head coach? I mean, it doesn't look like there's been any conversation over this weekend about his future. I have seen people in the print press saying, is it time for him to go? Some quite senior sort of, not your typical sort of Twitter/X commentators, people that work for the Scotsman, the Herald, those kind of sports writers that have seemed quite concerned about Edinburgh's going, because you look at that team yesterday, apart from Duhan van der Merwe, that's a team full of internationals or potential internationals once they become Scottish qualified. And that's my concern, is why aren't they playing like Glasgow are playing? And it worries me that Glasgow have got a very good coaching structure in place. I'd say when you look at Glasgow and Edinburgh players on paper, there's not a huge difference in quality there. It's how they're being managed at the moment. And that's what I'm worried about, is that Edinburgh don't have a coaching setup in place that is going to really bring those players. It's not just the coach's fault. There was a lot of players that their heads went down yesterday and it stayed down. They didn't get back up again. And I think Jamie Ritchie, Hamish Watson, those types of players. Matt Scott yesterday, very ineffective at 12, and he's come back to kind of add some maturity to that backline that wasn't there last season or the season before under Mike Blair. And that's my concern, is that when there's not that sort of level of maturity across the backline that we need, and the coaching setup is not there to drill them into playing sort of certain phase minutes. There was a moment in the sort of 10-15 minutes of the second half yesterday where we looked like rugby league players kind of waiting to be tackled, when they just kind of trying to slow down the game, and they're like, waiting to be tackled so they can reset the line and all that. But that's not how rugby union's played. You need to be front foot, no matter what the score is. You need to be on the front foot, and that was
I think as
evidently
well.
missing all day
Yeah.
yesterday.
I think the last couple of tries were the really, really weak defensively, shockingly so. I know they were tired. They were just like, they weren't even putting like, any effort in. On the just coming back to the Lions, I mean, obviously they played really well, and they've just, they're in the UK now. But as you're talking about Edinburgh having lost their first 3 games and being in a difficult position, the Lions now face the Dragons and Zebra. So if they can come away from those 2 games with wins, and I think realistically they can put those down as wins they should be getting, and potentially a bonus point in one of those games. I think they'll be in a really good position with a game in hand as well. So the Dragons, played really well, yesterday, but Zebra were a lot less impressive than we'd seen the week before. So I think the Lions will be targeting, Italy in the dry to bring some of that game back. It'll be a much harder game in Newport for them, but I think they'll be targeting the Zebra game to come away with 5 points. The style of rugby they play, the physicality, and seeing what the Stormers, error-prone Stormers, did to Zebra. I think the Lions are in a really good place at the moment. It just depends on whether we can. I know that they rested they brought a couple of their senior players on, and they rested a couple later on for the tour. But I think they're away from home now for something like 6 or 7 weeks.
6 or 7 weeks. The rest of the year, I think, pretty much almost. I think.
So I mean, it's going to be
next
really
home
tough.
game is January. In the league, their next home game is January.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a tough run as well. But getting the next 2 wins will put them in a really good position. So I'm really looking forward to that. But specifically, I think if they can come away with a couple of bonus points, or a 4-point win against Newport, the Dragons, and then specifically if they can come away from Italy with 5 points, they'll be really, really happy with that.
The only, they're all fair points. I think Lions, they were very impressive yesterday. As much as I think, we kind of contributed to our downfall. There was a lot of incredibly, complicated attacking now. So there's a lot of part offloads after contact that I thought you really exploited gaps in our defence yesterday. And I think, that contributed to 6, was it 8 tries by half time, 7 tries by half time, wasn't it? And kicking was very good as well. And behind, there was huge, there's swathes of space between Houston and Darcy Ray in particular on that right wing in the first half. I think the only thing I can think of as a benefit from us, we've actually come back from South Africa with a losing bonus point, and we've got 2 from against Leinster, and we only got 4 in total last year, so we do have 3 points from 3 losses, which, although it sounds slightly grim, it's something, but it's probably the only thing I can probably take away from those 3 games. I think on another day we probably should have beaten Leinster on that Friday.
And if there is one concern from the Lions' point of view, I will say that the wet would be a concern. It's all good and well playing that running rugby and stuff like that, but we've lost games in the past when it comes to.
So if you were in Cork in the weather last night,
I think that's our least favourite place to go and play.
Quickest try ever, though.
Galway and Cork, But I think from the Lions' point of view, if they can keep everything together, because there's lots of free running rugby, lots of backs scoring tries, so they're going to have to change to a forward orientated mauling and that kind of thing, and so hopefully, but overall, really happy.
Because I don't think your forwards really had the ball in the first half yesterday. They didn't need it. It was straight out the back, wasn't it? And then the line break after 18 line breaks. And I'd say, if not all of them, the vast majority of them were within the first 30 to 35 minutes. So it just showed that level of attack there. But I think second half you took the foot off the gas. I think if you'd carried on as you had in the first half, you could have racked up 75, 80 yesterday. But there was no need. Once you got the bonus point try, you kind of just, no injuries.
Start resting players.
Try a few things out, maybe a few different phases you maybe have in training, but you maybe don't have the confidence to take into a match until you've got 48 points on the board at half time, which as we know hadn't really happened before. So it was a difficult game to watch, but objectively I can't fault the level of attacking flair that the Lions employed yesterday. I thought it was very, very good, and on another day and against another team it would have been quite fun to watch. It just wasn't really yesterday.
No.
But there we are. Yeah.
So if we compare that game then, Ben, with your actual game of the week, which was Benetton Leinster, I mean, how, as an Edinburgh fan, how concerned are you, like, for the rest of the season when you look at someone like Benetton? Dragons have improved Scarlets have improved. Are you getting sucked? Are you looking at sides now and going, right, who can we compete with? Who can we beat? Is it that bad?
Not yet, no. I think the first three games are probably as tough as they could have been. Leinster at home, albeit without half their international team, which obviously were back in yesterday, and then a trip to South Africa. It was very similar 2 seasons ago, where we beat the Dragons, I think, first game, went straight to South Africa and lost both those games as well. So it's not unexpected. I think, the next three games, Stormers at home don't like coming to Scotland. We saw that with Manny Libet last year, having that mare at Scotstoun. If Edinburgh weather's similar to that on Friday, I think, Saturday afternoon, I think maybe Edinburgh, we might be able to squeeze out a win. There has to be a response. There has to be a response after that tour away, and I think that's something they're going to have to start working on as soon as they're back into training tomorrow. And I think we've got the Ospreys and Cardiff after that, home and away off the top of my head. I think it's Cardiff at home and Ospreys away. I think that's the order anyway. So there's 3 games there, which I think we could end up with 3 out of 3 and get back to an even keel, win 3, loss 3. That's probably my hope before the international break kind of comes up. But my concern is, other teams around us now seem to have become more competitive, like the Dragons, like Cardiff, like the Scarlets even. They've been closer games against teams that are, on paper look stronger. So that's a team full of internationals, like I said earlier, and there's no excuse to not be able to put in a performance over 80 minutes. We haven't had one yet this season where we've actually played. First half against Bulls was probably the best half of football in terms of defensive structure, kind of, choking the Bulls almost into not being able to score many points. Leinster, it was that first half was okay. 20 minutes in the second half, just embarrassing. In the last 10, 15 minutes, we kind of, without really knowing we could win, like at least got a few points back and managed to secure a bonus point try right at the end. But I think, the next 3 weeks are pivotal for the club. If we don't win at least 2 of those 3 games, I think top 8 probably out of reach already, I would say.
Okay. Well, if it helps to cheer you up, then one of my fellow Scarlets supporters said, I think top 8 is already out of our reach. We're 3 games in. So I feel your pain. Okay, let's look at your game of the week last week, Benetton Leinster. So 35-5 to Leinster, and they pretty much destroyed them. So we were expecting big things from Benetton this season. What was your take on that game?
Terrible again, ill-disciplined again, seemed very lost. With Umaga at 10 and Fekete at 12, you'd expect something better than what they're able to produce at the moment. And I looked through the stats again. Leinster had less territory and still outscored them by 5 tries to 1, had less possession, I think. And another yellow card very early on. I appreciate it was a penalty try, and there's some maybe sort of contention over who dragged the, whether it was sacked or whether it was held up or not. But the referee's made a call, and that's that. And you're always going to get a yellow card when it's it's been rolled over the try line. Leinster didn't really. I mean, Jack Conan was imperious again yesterday. Like he's really in form, and whether he leaves Leinster in the season or not, or whether he's playing himself into a Japanese club auction where they're all going to come flying in for him and he gets the biggest contract, I don't know. But he's such a good player, and he was playing out of position yesterday as well. He was playing at 6 because they also had Doris back in the back row at 8, I think, didn't they? So again, and Kieran Frawley seems to have got the number 10 jersey for himself. Ross Byrne came on very late last night. Kieran Frawley was very good, kicking, was very secure, sensible game management, nothing too, ridiculous. Ground was a bit messy yesterday. It was a bit cut up, not as bad as Cork, but it was definitely there. Well, no, it's just what it was. Just you said, it looked like the game might have been off at one point. The weather was that bad, but Leinster again didn't really have to do too much to secure that bonus point win yesterday, but. Yeah, as much as my kind of mire for Leinster is well known, in that I don't really, have much love for them. It's hard not to, appreciate the level of skill they have across their line without having to do too much to win a game. And Benetton were put away within the first 20 minutes, really, and it was game over from that point. But Benetton again, they've got a lot of work to do to try and resurrect their season, because. Like we all said at the start, that like they might be in contention to finish top 8, 6, 7. No, maybe not the top 4 positions, but certainly fifth. Between 6th and 8th was kind of where we sat on it. I think as a 4 of us. So just nothing really there from them again yesterday. And again, you expect a response at home after a pretty significant mauling by Glasgow the week before, and there was just absolutely nothing. And I think again, soft shoulders to a few. I think Frawley's try was just breeze through the pack. there was nothing really there. And yeah, again, a team that needs to really sort of look inward and understand what's going wrong, because they had such a good end to last season. They absolutely like rolled into that top 8, picking off teams at ease. So
as an Edinburgh supporter, you must be it's a pretty good league to be in, to, looking at the competition you're facing at the moment and the way they're playing. You should be pretty optimistic. You can definitely pick up some wins, some vital wins, to keep you in the middle part of the table come the end of the season.
Well, we tend to beat the Welsh teams home and away most seasons. That's certainly what it was last season.
And then you've got Zebra as well. So I
think we beat all 4 teams last season. Yeah, we did, home and away. And
yes.
We beat Glasgow at home. They beat us away, and obviously Benetton did us home and away, but we beat Zebre home and away. So I think if we can, pick up a win against Glasgow and then beat the other 2 teams back to back, then that's 5 wins there, and then it's picking up Welsh scouts. So
it's not all doom and gloom,
which is 9 wins, isn't it? Sometimes that's enough if you get enough bonus points. So
just on Benetton, like it's funny because they're almost in a similar position to yourselves in that started slow, no wins from 3. You almost expect them to pick up at least 1 win. Like this Glasgow Leinster was always going to be tough. I'll give them that. But they're in a similar position in that they've got the Sharks, followed by the Dragons, followed by the Bulls, followed by Edinburgh. If they don't win at least 3 of those games, they're in a bit of bother, aren't they? Because if you're not on 3 wins heading into Christmas, you're kind of on the outside looking in. You're going to have to need a big finish. And as we said, last year around Six Nations time is where they start to struggle a little bit. They've got so many players gone. Injuries might start to take a toll. It feels like there was a bit of a staleness about Benetton yesterday. They just didn't look up for it. They looked
again,
off the pace.
Melancello and Negri didn't sort of have that stature that they tend to had. They're 2 very solid Italian internationals that have been in that the Azzurri lineup for some time, and yesterday just seemed very stagnant. And yeah, it's quite interesting to watch that when they're you expect your internationals to step up in games like that, and they didn't. And yeah, I mean, to go on to obviously their discipline, Scott Scrafton got a 6-week ban reduced to 4 weeks. It was something that we'd all kind of suggested would be about that sort of 4 to 6 week bracket. But yeah, they've got to improve their discipline, because I think they've had a red or a yellow in all their 3 games so far this season, and obviously had 3 against Glasgow, including the red card. So yeah, the only thing I was interested is, I think Lee, you posted it in the group chat, or Hugh did maybe, about why Scott Scrafton got reduced by 2 weeks, and I was like, I didn't see any evidence of the mitigating circumstances. I don't know where's that recorded about.
Behind closed doors situation there, I think it's at the hearing and all that, but
very much a kangaroo court.
Discipline's an issue. You don't want to start off the season, as you said, with 5 cards already, and it starts to become something that becomes prevalent, because referees are going to notice.
Rest, you'll notice it exactly, and that's obviously
it happened to Scarlets, not last season before. We had at least 1 card in every game running into Christmas. That first half of the season, we had at least 1 card, and it just referees just look at you and go, "What am I giving a card for now?" It's in the back of the head. They're only human, and the slightest little, was that a tip tackle? Was that dangerous? Was there dangerous intent? Well, it's them, So it does become a thing. It is. They are only human, and some of them struggle to be human, but they are only human, referees. Right, let's move on. Speaking of referees, let's move on to Munster and Ospreys.
Was it Mike Adamson was refereeing that game, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah, we won't get into this because Twitter has been full of guys from
Missed
Wales.
Quite a few shotgun tackles.
I mean, the Shane McCarthy one for me is probably a yellow card, but I seen it slowed down. They didn't show the slowed down version on TV. The TMO would have had access to it, and it is just legal. Like, I mean, fractionally. Like
he said into chest, Mike Anderson, at the time.
Yeah, and to be fair, he was well positioned for it, and the TMO obviously backed it up. He did say TMO checked it as well, which is a factor. Now, I don't know who the TMO was, probably a Scottish lad or something. Because I don't think the TMO was used all game, but it was. Look, it's not the reason the Ospreys didn't score. Ultimately they didn't manage the game well at all. For all we said about they're going to bring the Stormers to Bridgend and they're going to show them a proper old school Welsh battle. They didn't have that this week. They were monstered by Munster. You know, Crowley and Casey were fantastic. They looked like world-class halfbacks on the day, kicked so well. I know Crowley was 1 from 5 in the tee, but it was a lot with those kicks as it was. The ball couldn't stay in the tee. But as a response from Munster is exactly what you wanted to see. I thought it's a weird one because they got off to such a bright start. They scored the quickest try in league history. Like that's
9.5 seconds, wasn't it?
Yeah, 9.5 to 10 seconds. Yeah, something in around. There was a clip on the URC page, but they start the clip too soon and they start the timer too soon, so it's hard to gauge what the exact time was. But it was definitely it was in around 10 seconds,
but it was a bad error though, wasn't it?
It was, and it was one of those where okay, the wind is a massive factor because that ball goes about 10 yards further than they wanted. But it's not like the ball went away from you, like international standard.
Dropped into the centre's hand, didn't it? You've got to expect to carry that and at least take it into contact.
And just fumbles it. And Shane McCarthy. Now, to be fair, like Paul O'Connell has mentioned this quote a few times, it's about, he wants lads to be world class at the things that require no talent. Shane McCarthy has scored 3 of those tries for Munster in the last 2 seasons, where he's chased the kick and just ran after it and got there. And that's what you want to see. He's only in the academy. I think he's only in year 2, maybe year 3, but I think he's only in year 2. That's what you want to see from a lad. But that got Munster on the right foot. I don't think the Ospreys ever really came back from that, if I'm being totally honest. I think they looked like a team who the heads went very quickly and they struggled. They were in a corner and they did not fight their way out of it. Like it was a really weird one for a team who thrive on a messy game. They really want to get their back row involved, set piece. Okay, the scrum, they know Tom Botha, they know Gareth Thomas. That's obviously a massive factor, but the lineout didn't really go that well for them on the night. Nothing really went well for them. And it was Munster who bossed the game. As I said, Crowley and Casey directed things. What were Munster up? They were up by 3 tries at halftime, like 23-0 or something like that. Or, sorry, not 23-0, those would have scored 18-0 at halftime.
Yeah, it's 15 plus a penalty, wasn't it, at that point? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was over. It felt like it was over after the second try because unless the Ospreys started to show some attack, and they didn't. Like Ospreys had chances in the second half, don't get me wrong, but only maybe once, possibly twice, did they actually look like scoring. I think that's a big takeaway here for a team who had responded so well last week, beat the Stormers, got the bonus point, really convincing performance against the Munster side who needed a response, and they got a response. That's as good of a chance you're going to have to beat Munster in some ways as well. Like, don't get me wrong, Munster were really good, but they lost Jaeger, they lost Peter O'Mahony, Mike Haley goes off injured with 10 minutes to go. They already have a plethora of injuries as is, as was shown on RTE after the game.
How do you manage that over the next few weeks?
Bottles of holy water, a couple of prayers, things
how would an atheist manage that over the next?
Hey, there we go. No, look, it's a weird one because it's hot luck. Sometimes, I know people who are SNC. It's like, you don't actually know what's going on in terms of SNC. You actually have no idea. Some of them, like, there's a couple of long-term injuries there. I think with Jaeger and O'Mahony, the hope is that they were just stingers, precautionary ones that if you left them on, it could go worse. And with a couple of big weeks coming in, maybe they felt like, no, we'll take them off. That's the hope anyway. But, you're looking at David Coyne is only just coming back in. Ollie Jaeger obviously went off. Peter O'Mahony went off. Edwin Adogbo and Tom Ahern are injured. They're without Billy Burns. As we know, Alex Nyfeld is due back. So is Billy Burns, in fairness. Shane Daly, Taki Abrahams, they're all out. Jimmy Kilgallen. It could take a toll. And next week is Leinster in Croke Park. That's that's scary enough.
Prospect 65,000 sellout, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not sold out yet. It's a stadium that holds 80, but it's still an unbelievable crowd. It's going to be there, an unbelievable occasion. Then it's down to South Africa, and then your internationals are going straight into Ireland camp. Well, Munster have the All Blacks actually after South Africa. The game against New Zealand in Thomond Park, not the All Blacks, but you know what I mean. So it's gonna be it's not officially. That's the weird thing, because an A team is a capture cap thing. I don't know. It's really weird. But it's going to be tough for Munster to manage. They're going to need to, I think, produce performances like we've seen last night insofar as, right, our line has been absolutely cat. Let's have a more dial back playbook. That's the hat last night. They had 100% of the line out. Kicking game, right, where are we weak? Okay, we're weak on kick return. Let's kick a little bit shorter, make it a little bit easier. Obviously, the wind was a factor. Did really well there. It's one of those ones, sometimes a team just needs to be stung before they realise, okay, let's dial things back a tiny bit as well. It's what I said last week. I was confident Munster would win because I thought it's easier to bring in Ty Byrne and Jack Crowley and say steer the ship rather than tell them we can't do anything right. And that's what we kind of seen. But look, it's a good result for Munster. They're back in the top 4 of the league, very early doors, of course, but a good response. But I think for the Ospreys not to score, to not fire a shot really at all. And yes, there'll be qualms about the officiating and things like that, but on a dirty night down in Cork and an abysmal night down in Cork, like we can't understate that. That's going to happen. And look, it's not the reason they didn't score. As I said at the start, it was just a poor Ospreys performance. And I think, were Munster really good? No, Munster were good enough. You know, second half, kind of like the Leinster Benetton game, second half was not something you're going to watch back too often. So it was one for the purists, I think, is the one there to use.
I think for me, when you look at, you know, the inability to score, and we said this in last week's pod, where Ospreys have got a very definite game plan, and we said if Munster wanted to take them to pieces, then the way to take them to pieces was to throw the ball around and run at the space rather than run at the big ugly boys up front, which they kind of did. But when the Ospreys went back to where they're strong, you know, like the last 10 minutes of that game was basically the Ospreys pounding the Munster line, and time after time not getting anywhere. And I think that for me is the worry for the Ospreys now, that, you know, if this is the core of your game, this is what you do week in, week out, and this is how you get tries, you know. When that doesn't work, that's the concern, you know. The amount of tries that they've scored off driving lineouts, you know, just hammering in close to rucks, yeah, that's what they're really, really good at. And Munster defence was committed. I think probably because they'd had that Tonkin the week before, and probably because, you know, it's still a 0 on the board and there's 70 minutes up on the board. I think if the Ospreys had slotted a couple of penalties in the first half and it's, you know, there's 6 on the board, then, you know, there's not so much to defend. When you're defending that line and you desperately want to keep them to a 0, that gives you a reason to defend hard. The Ospreys didn't have a plan B. You know, they pound the line, we're driving close, we're not getting anywhere. What do? Well, let's pound the line and driving close. Yeah, that's still not working. What do? Any idea?
You do wonder on that. Did they get the selection wrong? They went with Jack Walsh at 15 last week as the second playmaker. They had Kieran Williams at 12 last week. They moved Phil Cock and Asiga into 12 this week. He was an anonymous, really. Owen Watkin had a game that it wasn't up to his standard. Max Nagy wasn't really a factor in the game. He actually had a couple of mistakes. And look, you're not going to play expansive rugby in the conditions that we saw. We all know that. But maybe an extra pair of hands, maybe a different bit of direction. Maybe even having someone like Kieran Williams, who, in my opinion, is a better player than Cock and Asiga on the pitch, would have made a difference. Because anytime the Ospreys were in possession, they did really look like getting upfield, bar Munster conceding sloppy penalties in midfield. And that's the saddest indictment of a team's performance you can ever have, is that they only had what the opposition gave them.
Yeah. So, you know, I think the Ospreys have got stuff to go on, but what we do know is this is what Toby Booth is good at, is, you know, taking the wind down and finding positives in a bit of a loss. But yeah, I think that's the worst, not the worst I've seen the Ospreys play, but the least effort. Apart from that last 10 minutes where they had nothing and they got nothing out of it, it didn't seem like they wanted to match Munster toe to toe, and that's what I would have expected from Cardiff, from Ospreys.
Especially with how the games went last year. Like they were Alex Cuthbert pulling his hamstring away from getting 2 points against Munster in the Liberty Stadium. And the quarterfinal was against a full choice, first full strike Munster team. And they were fairly in. I know it finished like 23-7 or something like that, but they were pretty much in that for most of the game up until kind of the last 20 minutes. So again, to not kind of fire a shot is frustrating, but like they will bounce back. We know they're a good team. They will bounce back. But it's one of those, if you like, people would have said before the game, oh, this will suit the Ospreys. Didn't look like it. But that's what you hate to see.
And once you start to get 3 or 4 games into the season, people start to make assumptions about your top half of the table, your bottom half of the table. So, okay, so let's move on to my home game of the week, which I picked Cardiff and Glasgow because they were 2 top of the table teams. And I thought this is going to be a close game. Everyone thought this was going to be really close. We're gonna see maybe a low scoring game with 2 teams just kind of cancelling each other out. So to ship 50 points at home was just abysmal. And there were a couple of minutes in that game. There were a couple of times where like the game's gone, it's gone, but keep digging away. Oh, actually, yeah, you're back within a score. You're back within a score now. We can do something from here. Let's build up momentum. Let's keep going. Let's keep chipping away. And then you turn around and then there's another 2 tries on the board, and you're completely out of it. So, yeah, I mean, Cardiff are frustrating in the sense that they've got the players, they've got everything they need there to play better than that. I don't think Glasgow played particularly well. I'll be honest with you. I think they did what they needed to do, and then they kind of rode their luck a little. But Cardiff didn't make them work. Do you know what I mean? They just, the tackling was weak, the organisation was weak. They didn't put Glasgow under a massive amount of pressure. They just it felt like a training game at times.
Alan Sheedy had a shocker. Sheedy was terrible.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he had a real mare, and
some of his defence was just non-existent.
Soft shoulders again, butter melting in the pan. It was just people just falling away. Tupelotu's try was a great.
Say, that's a great analogy for poor defence.
Trademarked, patent pending. I think it was a bonkers game, wasn't it? I think the score. It was, the first half was just madness, I think, and tries being scored for fun. Tupelotu's try was brilliant, but it was soft shoulders, and the same for. There was another try, I think, that Glasgow scored. There was a breakaway try that Jamie Dobie scored and kind of danced around, and a scrum half running through backs like that. Really, should that be happening? I don't know.
And we talk about the other scrum half moments in this game. The best try of the
which should not have been given, which shouldn't have been given.
Yes, that is true. But
you can't push. You have to wrap. I don't know what I looked at it. I was like, "There's a reason why that's looking weird to me," and I worked out it's because it was you can't do it. You can't push a player like that when they're kicking. You have to attempt to wrap, and there was no attempt to wrap. And if that was a close game, I'd be spitting. If I was, on the opposition team, like
I've got my Munster top on, so I wouldn't have been, but it was still yes, it should not have been allowed, and that is absolutely true. And Cardiff fans were saying, no, it's perfectly legal. It's not. But it was so funny.
So
because it's a scrum half, it's the stereotype.
So talk me through it, because I'll be honest, there were bits of that game where I just switched off, and there were bits of that game where and I'm obviously flicking between the Scarlets game and that game. I was dual screening, one on the phone and one on the big screen. So talk me through what happened with that one, because.
I'll have a go first, Ken. Obviously, jump in if there's anything I missed. But
don't worry, you will.
Jamie Dobie is obviously. I think it was off a line out or 5 metre scrum, and Jamie Dobie stepped back, obviously to box kick, to touch, obviously to reset, outside the 22, and Dan Thomas has come off the other side of either the back of the ruck or back of the scrum.
Came off
And
the blind side.
He came off.
Yeah.
So he came on Derby's left-hand side when he's kicking up his right foot. Derby's obviously gone to kick it. Dan Thomas has come through, and then it's one of those like schoolboy shoves. You go to school and you're like, oh, get back.
He just lost his balance,
that sort of thing.
didn't he?
And he lost his balance, and Dan Thomas has gone over and dabbed it down, and the ref's given it. And I'm thinking, that shouldn't be allowed, but it was given. And I'm like, well, where's the TMO at this point going? You need to look at that. He's not wrapped. He's done nothing apart from just pushing back. And the reason you don't see that rugby is because you can't do it. And there is a specific law, I think it's 9.3.6, I saw quoted somewhere in the ether. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense now. There's a reason why that try shouldn't be given. But
imagine winning by 30 points and quoting the law book. Like, Jesus, I've never been that desperate now.
But it wasn't 30 points at that point, was it? Because I think it got Cardiff back
true.
within a score, I think, at that point. But it was an odd one. But I think this is where Glasgow are really interesting to watch as an attacking team, and they've kind of, the whole Sexton sort of flip, with the way that he played at Ireland, played at Leinster. Glasgow have this thing where they have this, they clearly got their 10-12 axis now. It's Tom Jordan or Duncan Weir when Tom Jordan moves out of 10. Sorry, Duncan Weir, and then Tuipulotu at 12. And I know Caolan and I have slightly different opinions on, Tuipulotu's merits, but what Tuipulotu is very, very good is that very acute pass out the back without looking, and he's mastered that. Whether it's something that he's worked on all over the summer, but you're seeing it phase after phase, play after play, the first 3 games of the season, and it's clearly working for them because you've got a blind runner, whether it's the 14 coming off of Winston when they come off the back of the scrum and off their wing and come inside, or whether it's a crash ball for the 13 to then go straight through and punch a hole, but it seems to be working really, really well. And it's something that they have clearly trained and worked very, very hard on, but Tuipulotu seems to have mastered it because he's given the eyes, and it's the flip pass out the back, and it's getting them a lot of joy at the moment. No team, I've not seen any of the 3 teams they've played so far able to deal with that at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see when they come up against probably sterner opposition, whether that will continue to work. Because obviously they will need another plan beyond that, but it seems to be generating them a lot of joy at the moment.
Do you think Glasgow are? I don't think they're getting out of second gear at the minute. I think I don't know whether they're struggling to get out of second gear, but they're not the team that finished the end of last season.
I don't think they need to be yet, though, do they? I think that's probably what you'd say. I think what I did find interesting the week, I guess we haven't had time to discuss this yet, but Richie Gray leaving for a destination unknown at the moment. I understand sort of probably it's a lucrative nature, whether it's France or it's Japan. Ryan Wilson on Friday night said, I know where he's going, but I can't tell you where he's going. But that little twinkle in his eye that we all know he's capable of doing.
Japan. If he's leaving in November, it could be Japan.
And because he's been to France already, he did a bit of tour of France when he was at Cast and then Lyon and not Perpignan, maybe off the top of my head. But it's just a shame he's leaving because he had such a renaissance to come back into the Scotland setup, and it'd be interesting to see if Scotland continue to select him after the November tests for the Six Nations. But maybe it's a one-season swan song for him to go over to Japan, because I think you're right, Caolan. It will be Japan. I can't see him going anywhere else. He certainly wouldn't go Super Rugby, not with a young family. I think it's a long way to travel. So I think Japan would probably be the right destination for him. But again, just a bit surprised he's gone, because I think he was the linchpin in Glasgow's title win last season from a forward perspective. I think he was very, very important in Glasgow winning the title last season, the way he played, especially against Thurman Park against Munster, and the final against the Bulls, he was pivotal. So who knows where he'll go, but you're probably right, it'll be Japan. But it's just a shame, because I love him. I think he's one of my favourite players of Scotland. Just because of his sheer longevity of his career, he's just been an outstanding player.
He was it's a really weird phrase to put on a guy, but he was kind of the first of that new Scotland generation. He was the first breakthrough player. He came through around 2011, 2012. Short Hog was a bit younger at the time. We all know what he's up to. But Richie Gray was kind of like the guy. He's going to be, this player to look out for. And you had the likes of, obviously Hogg, Denton, the likes of Duncan Weir, all coming through around the same time. Not everyone went on to great success, but he's had an unbelievable career. Even, it feels like he never reached the heights, but I think that's just because everyone knew he was such a great player. But he's still probably played about 300 games of rugby and represented Scotland at World Cups, won a league, won 2 leagues, I think.
2015 and last season, yeah, you're right. I think it was when he went to France, things dropped off a bit in terms of his injuries. I think he missed. I think he was out of Scotland set aside for about 2 years, and obviously then became his brother and Grant-Gilchrist kind of like nailed down that sort of second row spot. But Johnny Gray's now back in France and seems to be playing again, which is good to see. And obviously, will be interesting to see if he gets picked up because he barely played for Exeter last year. So, yeah, fingers crossed for him. But Richie, yeah, it's a shame to see him go, but it's there's obviously some other interest there that motivating him, I would suspect. He's getting to the end of his career, so I understand that. But
okay. So that's all of our focus games from last week wrapped up. So, Caolan, do you want to take us through the rest of it? Do you want me to remind you about the games, or are you organised enough to go? I know what's coming.
Are you suggesting he hasn't prepared?
I don't have it prepared.
He's obviously prepared. He prepared it before he asked if he could do this.
Can we all take a 10-minute break and come back? Is that the plan?
Yeah, actually, Lee is going to stay because when you talk about the Scarlets, the rest of you can just bugger off there.
All right, in the spirit of camaraderie and teamwork. That's a lovely sentiment, Caolan. Yeah, right, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Look, lads, it's a Sunday. Come on, let's hurry things up. But no, the first game that we didn't cover, which was probably one of the best games of the week, Scarlets 23, Connacht 24. Connacht raced out to a 14-point lead very early in this game, but it needed a last-minute penalty to actually win it. Scarlets excellent. Lee, definitely a sense that this was one that they like. It's kind of one who won it and who lost it in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 mistakes in the first 10 minutes just kind of shafted us, and a little bit of composure under pressure, and we don't, we could have comfortably taken the ball into touch in our own 22 and then defended the line, but we decided to throw it. A little bit of panic, and it could have easily gone to a player. It didn't. They went over the top of his head and straight in for a touchdown. So it's frustrating because we lost it because of our own mistakes, which is kind of similar to Benetton. We should have won that game, but we made a couple of mistakes ourselves. A yellow card for stopping a quick line out, is just, you want to see players giving it something. You want to see that effort and all of that, but there was a lack of composure. But to come back from where we were to that scoreline, when you're 10 minutes away or 5 minutes away, and you're desperate for the win. I said on you last week, we're desperate for the win. We just need it. Everything else is going in the right direction. You just need a win. It was hard to take. It was genuinely hard to take. Even my wife asked me, "Was I okay?"
I get that a lot.
There's always a couple of games where we get asked that question. And look, we like being asked that question in some ways, but at the same time, you don't want to be asked the question before the game starts.
And you don't want to sit there and go, no, I'm not okay. Did you see that game? And go, yes, dear, I'm fine.
Stick strictly on.
23 men I've never met before have just lost a rugby game chasing the ball.
Exactly.
It was a weird one though, wasn't it? Because I think Connacht, it looked like for 20 minutes Connacht were just going to run out the gate, and then they take the foot off the pedal. I thought Connacht were really, really poor apart from the first 20 minutes. Got nothing going. A couple of players played well. Oliver Boyle, they're two different people for anyone who doesn't know Connacht. That's Conor Oliver and Paul Boyle. Nothing really got going. Bundy was pretty quiet. They kind of got out of jail, but I suppose that's as important as Anthem as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and Bundy was kept quiet, and I think that was the key bit. You look how many times Costello snapped his ankle for him. In defence, when Costello went into the Bundy Aki, you go in around you start at the knee and you go lower, because if you try and go any higher, then
you're going to get pushed backwards. Yeah.
And Costello was only a wee little lad anyway, and he used that to his bet. And he's going low, and there's someone coming over the top. We double teamed him pretty much every time, and pretty much shut him down. And a lot of Connacht's game is based around, let's give the ball to the big hefty guy at 12 and let him run, and then when 4 or 5 people have tried to tackle him, we'll pass it to somebody else who can run quite fast as well.
Well,
That's
he's the only
game.
person they have to get compressions in defense. Like they don't have a big pack. They don't have, like a like they've got a good backline, don't get me wrong, but they don't have the type of backline that you have to man mark their back three or anything like that. It's Bundy, and that's kind of it. And that's the thing, when you do shut him down, Mac Hansen probably had his worst game of the season so far. Yes, it's 3 games in, and yes, he still played all right, but was really good the last 2 weeks. But it is one of those. It's like, if you do stop Bundy, they don't have the biggest pack. Scarlets, probably a more punchy pack than Connacht did in terms of performance. And that obviously makes a difference. We had another...
Yeah, definitely one that got away. But
yeah.
I say, it's all positive down west at the minute. And
no, well, which west? Well, hey.
So, yeah, but we take that on to next week. So... What was the next game? Bulls Ulster?
Next one is Bulls Ulster. Yeah, Bulls 47, Ulster 21. 10 tries scored in this one, which is a bit too Gallagher's for me, but we won't get into that. It's still too early in the season for those drives. Jacob Stockdale scored one of the tries of the year. People didn't see it. Wonderful chip and chase score. Beats Aronsa, beats Willie LaRue. Like, it was trademark Jacob Stockdale. Really good to see. But the Bulls are just lethal, and especially against an Ulster team. I've said it the last couple of weeks, they're without a lot of players, a lot of crucial players. And Eddie's told, Ulster got no change in the set piece. They were bullied up front, the likes of Ilroy Glow winning the breakdown battle consistently. And look, it's a disappointing one for Ulster there, but the Bulls look dangerous, as they always do.
There were reports as well that Ulster went down to Cape Town and did all of their camps and stuff and just travelled up for the games. So they based themselves in Cape Town for both games, which is actually probably a good thing to do, because they know the hotel, they know Cape. There's more to do in Cape Town. So if you're going to go over to South Africa, that's probably the way to do it, instead of camping up in Johannesburg or Pretoria for 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Munster did that last year, and they loved it because it got them out of altitude and it got them out of the kind of area they were in. They were kind of able to, as you said, Cape Town is the kind of city you can kind of do whatever. You can have your off days, which you'd kind of have to have after playing.
It's a bit safer as well in Cape Town, isn't it? I think, is that fair to say, in terms of...
It probably is a bit. It's a lot more cosmopolitan. So, I mean, walking around Pretoria, you're probably not going to get that much, interaction with the public and stuff like that, because they're very, very it's the heartland of Afrikaners and stuff like that. So they're maybe a little bit more, they'll rib the players a bit more and stuff like that. Whereas in Cape Town, you're probably going to get a bit more freedom to move around and that kind of thing, and maybe people they'll probably recognize the players, but there's so many like celebrities and whatever there that it's just like steel thing,
And the second to last game of the week, Dragons 30, Sharks 33.
What a
Alan,
game.
I know you were watching this one. Sharks, they got, I'm not saying it in terms of a refereeing discussion or anything. They got away with one. They absolutely snuffed that.
Yeah. That was some game. Like I was so impressed with the Sharks, because I know you and me picked them to win on Super Brew, but at one point I was like, I don't know. I was but it hopefully it'll kickstart their season now. I mean, a little bit chaotic, very frenetic, and exactly what Lee said earlier about the Ospreys. Like, just they can do something and they're just going to batter the line until they get over, and it just happened to work on this occasion. But I love the games that go right to the end. It makes you really like look forward to the next week's games, and puts the Dragons will be motivated by that game. The Sharks will be motivated by that game. So that's the way you want these games to go. Really, you want these close affairs.
Yeah, and just finally a washout of a different kind in Parramatta. Zebra 5, Stormers 36. Stormers back on track. Zebra don't look like the team that they were the week before, and hate to be the team that lost to Zebra in round 2. How would you be those guys?
And just a mention on the TMO situation there as well. There was a stoppage in the game for a supposed clear out on one of the Zebra players, and there was nothing there. And they spent ages looking at it, didn't they? And they were trying to find something to look at. They said, is there angles? So they just need to look at maybe making sure there's something there before the TMOs bring it to the referee's attention. And then he just said, there's nothing here. Let's carry on. So
they were definitely conscious of making the right decision, as it was the game altering play, I suppose.
But there was a similar thing in the Scarlets game where the referee called, it was a long line out, it goes way over the back of the line. And when you look at it, it's a throw that goes, 20, 25 meters, and it might have gone a meter to the left. And the referee calls it, and then he goes, "Oh, the touch judge calls it," and then the touch judge goes, "No, it wasn't me."
Yeah.
And the ref goes, "Yeah,
that was a bad one.
Yeah,
I remember that. That was a bit of a mistake there.
And you're looking at that, you put that together with some of the issues in the Munster game, and you're a bit like, the one bit that lets this league down is TMOs, potentially referees. That's a fair call, but TMOs have got so much more scope for correcting mistakes, and referees should feel confident about, you know what, I'm gonna let play flow here and ask the TMO to look at it, or the TMO, they should know that the TMO is going to look at something. I'm just going to let it go. I can always pull it back to there, and it doesn't happen. And then we have these people who are going, "Oh, TMO, it'd all be down to the ref," and they only say that on the weeks when their team has benefited from a ref call that wasn't pulled up by the TMO. It's the one weakness that the URC has that it needs to sort out. And
they need a few South African players in the build up to these games as well. That'd be nice.
That too. It would. It's not like the English and Irish would be stuck with South African options of players that played there in the past. Like sorry, the Welsh, Scottish, and Irish, I should say. Apologies.
We will no doubt discuss referees, TMOs on a quiet week. It'll be the week after it might be the same week that we discuss kits, because I know you guys are dying to discuss kits. And I will say that the Scarlets away kit was released last week. I quite like it. I don't care what anybody else says.
It's an Edinburgh jersey, isn't it?
Shut up. No, it's not an Edinburgh one. It's not the same as the Cardiff one. It's not the same as Ospreys. I don't care. I like it. Right. That was the last game, wasn't it, from last week? Zebra Stormers. Right, fantastic. Okay. Let's quickly look ahead then to what's coming. So I'm going to start with you, Caolan, because the general rule is you pick a game that one of your sides has got at home, and if you've got a derby, then you'll go with that, because that's two. We've all got four sides, so that's two of your four sides. Yeah. You have got two home derbies, and it's not Christmas. What is going on? So, give us a rundown on those two games, man.
I mean, look, I'm not going to lay my biases onto the table, but I will. But if Munster and Ulster get the jobs done in these two, it might feel like Christmas. I do have a soft spot for Ulster, as everyone can tell on this podcast, and I'm a Munster man. But look, Munster-Leinster, it doesn't need to be sold. It is one of the great rivalries in this league. Yes, it's a little bit one-sided, but it's one-sided because it's fierce. It's not constant 30-0 bashings like, you see in other leagues or whatever. This one is interesting though, because it has the backdrop of it's being played in Croke Park 15 years on from the famous Heineken Cup semi-final, which we won't talk about. It's still tough to talk about. And there's going to be probably north of 70,000 people in it. I think 69,000 tickets have been sold as we speak. So probably north of 70, it's great for the league. It's great for Irish rugby. Now there's a greater conversation to be had about it's a GA stadium, so Leinster will have to pay quite a bit of rent to use it for the night. But that's that's an Irish geopolitical podcast. But it promises to be a big one, because I think yes, Munster have a lot of injuries and had that really poor performance in round 2. Apart from that, have looked good. Leinster, 15 points from 15, haven't looked like Leinster usually do. So I think that's the strange juxtaposition that you have there. Leinster should win this. You look at how key players are playing, like Gary Ringrose was excellent the weekend, Gibson Park, Caolan Darcy, Jack Conan, and unfortunately Orkay Snyman was very good at the weekend as well. Just in time to play us. But for Munster, their ability to play well against Leinster, the Graham Rowntree era, has been really good. You know, they've all been very tight, one-score games in either direction. Munster sent heavily rotated team to the Aviva last year and only lost by 5 points. And Leinster didn't fire at all. And we're lucky to get out of that one with a win. A draw would have been a fair result of the night. But Munster could be without Peter O'Mahony, Ollie Yeager, you know, Ahern, Adogbo, Kendlin. We've been over this. That it's a massive injury list. I think Leinster will win it. But I think it's for Leinster, I think they need to get a big performance out of the way. Obviously, as a Munster fan, I hope it's not this weekend. I hope Munster win. But Leinster need that big performance because ultimately, if they don't, they go on then. They only have 2 weeks before the November test, or 2 games before the November test. They'll lose all their players there. They'll have no games then until Europe. And you're asking them to go into Europe pretty raw. Now, they do have Bristol to start, granted. But it is a bit of a challenge. You need to hit the ground running now before your season gets, you know, kind of disrupted, I suppose. I want to touch on Ulster Connacht just really quickly because this one's really interesting. Ulster, as we said as well, they're without so many players. Unfortunately for them, their best players this season are probably the 2 lads who are off in the Emerging Ireland Tour at the moment, is Juku and Harry Sheridan. They've both been excellent. Boston and Wilson as well. Ulster need a result, and Ulster are very good in Ravenhill. Connacht's record there is very poor. Connacht's coming in with a lot of confidence. But how good have Connacht been is another question. They've managed to get the job done, but 20 minutes, 40 minutes against the Sharks, 20 minutes against Scarlets, probably not ideal. Both teams need to raise their game. Unofficial call, which I may change come Friday, is I think Ulster will squeak it. This is not on the record for the podcast. I think Ulster might squeak it. And I think Leinster will win the other one. But promises to be a cracking night of 2 interpros. And I look forward to it. It's a Sunday, so I look forward to it. Come Saturday, I will not. It'll be nerve-wracking, but sure, we'll see. And I might be there. So, look, I might even send you a photo from Croke Park if I make it in.
Well, what we did do with the Scarlets this week was one of the boys did like a vlog all the way through it that we chopped up and all that kind of stuff. Really, really good. So if you fancy doing one of them, mate, everybody loves a good vlog. However, at some point you do have to film yourself having a reaction to what your side has just done, and that bit I can assure you when Big M did it, and it was right at the end of the game. So Connacht had just put that kick over, and you just see Martin going like, "Yeah, I go, no, talk, Martin, talk," and he's going, "Are you and it took him about 4 goes. There's 4 videos. I go, no, can't use that one. Can't use that one. Okay, here's one where he actually talks and said something. So yeah, always a good one. Did we? Oh, we'll come and we'll do predictions at the end. We'll do predictions at the end. Right. Ben, you have the pleasure of Glasgow and Zebra this week. So thoughts on that one?
I think it's an opportunity for Glasgow to try out some different phase plays. I think they're going to win quite comfortably. So yeah, I think there'll probably be some. I think there'll be some rotation. I think the SRU might come down. So obviously, it does get dictated from the Scottish national team. They might want to blotto people like that. Maybe rested. Maybe Duncan Weir will start instead of Tom Jordan, because Tom Jordan becomes Scottish qualified, I think, soon. So he might be in play. I don't think he's played for Autumn. I think he might be in play for the Six Nations off the top of my head. I stand corrected if I got that wrong. So maybe some rotation this weekend. So I think you might see some of the second string fringe players stepping up and playing. Cancelier, I don't know if he's injured at the moment or not, but I think it would be a good opportunity to come back in if he is fit, because he did play quite well towards the end of last season, because they played Cordero on Friday against Cardiff, but Cancelier, he's not been seen around the squad for quite some time. So if he's fit, I think this weekend would be a good opportunity for him to get back into it, because quite an exciting winger. Played quite well against Munster in that semi-final in Thomond Park. So yeah, I just think it's going to be a fairly routine victory for Glasgow to go 4 from 4. I can't see anything beyond that at the moment.
Yeah, see, that's what Caolan said when they played. I think if we go back a couple of weeks, that's not too dissimilar to what was said back then. So yeah,
the Glasgow at home, and I think Franco Smith's too professional to allow any sort of slipping in standards. I think Munster just got caught cold. I think that was maybe just a one-off, but I think Glasgow will, don't underestimate the opposition. I think that's very much something that Franco Smith has instilled in the side, and I think it'll be won by half time. I mean, I want Zebre to be competitive. We all do, and they have been. They've obviously got one win of the season so far, but it was almost back to kind of type yesterday, wasn't it, at home to the Stormers? So yeah, they needed to back that very outstanding performance against Munster with something yesterday, and it wasn't there. So I think Glasgow it'll be a routine win.
I would love to see them turn over Glasgow, just
Oh, well,
again for the league.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great for the league. Yeah, no, I have no, kind of like truck with that, because obviously Glasgow isn't my team. Obviously, the Scottish national players there that I want to see play well for Scotland when it comes around to the autumn and Six Nations and so on and so forth. But yeah, again, you don't want to see blowout. I was so worried yesterday was going to be 70-80 on Edinburgh, and fortunately it wasn't. But no one wants to see that blowout game. But I think Glasgow is one of those games where they could easily get 50 again, and yeah, bonus point win.
Okay, so now technically on paper, my game of the week is Cardiff and Scarlets, but seeing as we played 2 weeks ago, I'm very briefly going to skip over this one and change my game of the week. So it'll be a tough game. It'll be interesting. Cardiff coming off a battering. They do tend to fill the home stadium nowadays, so that's going to be a factor. But Scarlets are going up. So, you've got somebody at the top of the table and the top half of the table that has taken a bit of a battering, and somebody in the bottom of the table that thinks, we played 3 games, we've had 1 draw, 2 losses. We should be a lot higher than this. So it's going to be interesting. So yeah, it's well worth watching because it's always a good game, but it's not my game of the week. My game of the week is Dragons Lions because it's on a Sunday. Dragons hate playing on a Sunday. The town is dead on a Sunday, and I don't know why, and I think this game might be different, but I think they're going to fill the stadium. It's going to be an absolute hell on earth for the Lions to come and play the Dragons on Sunday. There's a lot of positivity about the Dragons this week. There's a lot. Tane Basham was just outstanding last week, and Tane Basham, when he's on fire, is great. And then he tends to go. He'll have 2 games or 3 games where he's really, really great, and then something will go wrong, and he'll get a yellow card and a red card and a yellow card, and then he'll be great again. So, yeah, I just think this game has everything that you need, everything that you want to be a corking game. Just from a neutral perspective, both sides are feeling buoyant. Both sides do like to throw the ball around. Dragons have probably struggled to do that up until last weekend. Last weekend, they did try and do that against the Sharks, and it did work when they were doing it. You've got Rosser on one wing, you've got Dyer on the other. At some point, a fullback that they signed last season is going to come back to me at some point, isn't it? But he's due back from injury. It's got everything you want to be a corking game. Lions are on and up, but then they've got to travel. There's just so many things going into this game where you think this is the game to watch. And being on a Sunday, I've got no Strictly clash. I'm probably going to get the lawn mown on Saturday morning, maybe. So I got nothing on Sunday. Sunday is free. This is the game to watch on Sunday. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a belter of a game, and I encourage everybody to watch it. So, yeah, Dragons, Lions, Sunday. I think, kickoff time is usually 3 o'clock, 2:30. There you go, 2:30 is kickoff time.
It's the last Sunday game of the season, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I thought they were getting rid of Sunday games and going back to just Friday and Saturday, but I quite like a Sunday game from a watching point of view. I've never been to a game on a Sunday in
It
the
does tend
stadium.
to be the Welsh home games are on a Sunday. I've noticed historically. I think it doesn't seem to. Obviously, the South Indies will never play on a Sunday because of the travelling involved. But yeah, I think it has been the Welsh teams. I think there was a couple of games last season where Ospreys might have had a couple, maybe a Sunday game. But yeah, there is something a little bit different about a Sunday game, and when it's a standalone game as well, isn't it? You know, a bit like the French top 14 on a Sunday night. They kind of hold that game for. You know, I can't remember. I think it's Clermont are playing Bordeaux tonight. I think potentially, I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, that Sunday game does have a bit more edge around it, I think.
I mean, if the URC wanted to commit to it and they made it a Sunday night game, yeah, where like the NFL Monday night game is a big thing, and it's like, right, you sit down, you get the family in, it's a thing, it's an event, and every Sunday this is it. I think that would be the way to do it. Having it random every now and again does kind of throw people, and then you're automatically on a shortened time layoff and stuff. But anyway, Dragons Lions is the game for me. That's what I'm going with this week. Let's do predictions, because this is everyone's favorite bit. Yeah, I know how much you guys love it. I know how you look forward to it, and you go, this is the bit where I enjoy being put on the spot to make a prediction. So, Caolan, you go first. You got 2 games to predict, mate. So, Leinster, Munster.
Heart says Munster. Head says Leinster by probably 2 scores. I think they have the ability to find that gear that'll see them pull away, especially if Munster are depleted. For Ulster Connacht, I'm gonna lean towards Ulster. I just think they need it, and sometimes that divine intervention is big in a sport like rugby. Ulster need to win. Connacht should win it, don't get me wrong, but Ulster need to get back on track.
I agree. I think
right
at
now.
home, I think Ulster are pretty. I think they should take that one as well. I hope they do.
Yeah. Alan's already pitching in with his Super Group predictions, mate. So
Mr. 8 from 8 last week, so I think we should listen to him more often.
Ben, your prediction for Glasgow Zebra?
Glasgow by 40. I'm going to go wild. I think it's going to be a rout.
Wow. Okay. It's going to be a lot of Italians that are swearing at you in a language that I don't understand. So yeah, 40. Oof.
Sorry, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, Alan, we didn't do Ospreys Bulls. We didn't review Ospreys Bulls. Sorry, mate. Well, I went straight into predictions.
No, that's all right. That's okay. I mean, I was
that's
okay.
I'll be what's 2 going minutes. On here.
I was going to give Ben a break from discussing Edinburgh against the Stormers, so I'll give the Stormers that game within 7 points, and then the Ospreys against the Bulls. The Bulls will be raring to go. They're going to come with a full strength team. I think Ospreys will be desperate for a win. They're 9th in the table. The Bulls are 7th, but I think the Bulls are probably going to take it. The only thing that's probably going to save the Ospreys, I think, is if they can really, do one of their best performances of the season, and the fact that they're playing at home. But I think the South African teams are going to win all the games this weekend, and I give the Bulls are going to beat Ospreys by about 10 to 12 points.
See, I think Ospreys at home are a different kettle of fish to when they travel.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a little bit like Munster last week, coming off it was a shock defeat against Zebra, where losing away to Munster isn't a shock. It's not an expectation, but it's a shock. I think the manner of the game, the way the Ospreys played, was the shock.
I think one of the things for the Bulls is it was pretty noticeable that Huerson didn't play on the weekend, and they looked like a completely different team. And I think what Ospreys need to do to win that game is they're going to have to dominate physically up front, and I think they're going to have to. I think the Bulls will just have too much for them. So I do think the Bulls are going to win that game. I think it could be close, like 10, 12 points is how close that is. But I think the Bulls are going to take that. They're going to be itching to go. There's a few players in that Bulls team that'll want to make the Springboks tour at the end of the year. So they're really going to be going hell for leather, I think.
Okay. So your prediction is Bulls by 10?
10 to 12. So let's say 10 points.
Okay. Cool. my apologies to Ospreys fans and to you, Alan. For I usually
They're
go
trying to
last
get me
this
booted
one.
out, guys. They want to give Caolan more airtime and me less.
Caolan wants to give himself more airtime. We don't want to give him more airtime.
Lad, I'll just say it's an Irish thing.
So, so now I've got Cardiff Scarlets. I'm going to go with Scarlets win by 2. But my game of the week, I'm going to go Dragons by 5. I genuinely think the Dragons are going to take it. I think Alan's going to be, because that game's on Sunday afternoon, and then we're going to come off that game. We're going to have a little bit of something to eat. Maybe we'll have one of Caolan's takeaways or something, and then we're coming on here. I think you'll still be crying by the time we start this pod next week.
I don't think so. So far, I've won our first Interpod game, and I'm waiting a few weeks for the next one. A month and a half or whatever it is for the next one. But I think the South African teams, at least this week, I think they're going to win all their games. I don't know about next week, but definitely this week. I think the Lions have got that game. Even the Sharks, I'm even throwing them in the ring as well for a win. So there you go.
It's nothing worse than a cocky South African. I mean,
they're just South Africans.
You didn't have to add cocky.
They're just South Africans. That's all it is. It's just South Africans. At least I'm not Australian. There you go.
Hey, at least you're not.
I lived there. I got the bed front of that.
Yeah.
How to alienate a good big section of anyone that might listen.
Well, we're falling into the Premiership trap, aren't we? Getting rid of South Africa.
Yeah, I think Australia have got bigger fish to fry than worrying about what I've got to say against them.
To be fair to the Wallabies, though, they did. I know this is very much going off on a tangent, but they did pick up a bit towards the end of the Rugby Championship, and hopefully Joe Schmidt will get him into a position of strength for the Lions for next year, because you don't want that to be one-sided, because it really undermines the purpose of going. So otherwise, everyone will watch Lions Argentina as opposed to the 3 tests, won't they? Because that'll be more competitive, and that's not what we want.
We could send the Scots and we'd still win. That's what stage we've got.
Oh God, here we go.
Well, we'll see, because we've got them at Murrayfield 3rd week, I think, of the 4-week full test. So yeah,
that's true actually.
Yeah.
Okay, gents, thank you for your time again this evening. It has been a pleasure. The URC continues to deliver as a league. We were worried when we started this. Is there going to be enough, to talk about? Or are we going to just keep talking about the same teams over and over and over? We're in week 3, and we still don't know who the top teams and who the bottom teams are. It's just we'll ignore Leinster, but other than that, everything is still in the mix, and it has been absolutely fantastic so far. And looking at the fixtures coming in week 4, I think we're in for an absolute belter again. It's going to be an absolute fantastic round of fixtures. So on that note, I shall bid you farewell and good night. We shall do this all again next week, and between now and then, enjoy your rugby. All the best, gents.
See you later.